Hello everyone and welcome to Ginger Prime. My name is Brian if you're new around here, but if you're a returning subscriber, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, you legends. That's what you get for subscribing, by the way, an extra greeting at the start of these videos. Today I wanted to give you guys an update as relates to servers. A lot of people have been asking, hey Brian, I can't play the game right now. When should I plan to start? What did the servers look like? Obviously, now that we've seen the first phase of the normal raids being released, what does the game look like in terms of hopefulness regarding servers? And so I want to kind of give you guys the best information that I have based off of experience and based off of what Yoshi P has said thus far. Now, currently, guys, if you're just joining in on this video, and the TLDR is the community has been given 21 free days of login time. Obviously, server congestion was something that was very well expected, but unfortunately, due to the state of the world, there haven't been the ability to address the hardware needs, and they brought in dev servers, and that's kind of helped alleviate some of the issues. They found some 1.0 bugs, which they patched this week, which has helped alleviate some of the issues. And I say some because it doesn't equate to all. There is still a sense that based off of your data center and perhaps even your world, you could see a long queue time. But for me, I'm going to speak to my personal experience. I have seen the ability to actually get into the game consistently. My 2002 errors have, it looks like, vanished from my impact, but even seeing others tweet out that they are still being hit by 2002 errors. So I think overall we've seen a massive reduction in errors in the queue time, which tells me that as long as I put myself into queue, I will get into the game, and that has been my experience thus far. So that's actually a really good sign of things to come, because a couple of forces are working on the game. And if you're new and this is your first expansion, some of this information might seem strange if you're coming from another MMORPG, but for those of you who are veterans of this game at some expansion of the past, a lot of this stuff should seem very natural because that seems to be the way of things. Final Fantasy XIV is a Final Fantasy game focused first. In fact, a lot of the player base play this as a story-focused RPG first, and then some stick around for any kind of MMO kind of content like the raids and other, hunts and things like that that happen in the open world, and eventually the relics and other pieces of content that will get introduced at some point in the future. But being that we know that, we've seen that as more and more people have cleared the story, that has actually returned people into, I guess, a more normal or natural play state. So they're no longer marathoning 60 or 80 hours or not logging out. Because that essentially, there's no more story. They have beaten the game. They have beaten Endwalker, which essentially concludes a lot of what we've seen happening over the last, 11 years of story and expansions that kind of been brought together. So with that story first focus, typically you'll see that group hang out until around 6.1, and then they'll kind of just trail off until the 6.5 or 6.55 or even the 7.0, whatever that kind of looks like. And that's when you'll see that return. In fact, that's actually one of the things that caused this massive amount of congestion. We had a massive surge of new players happening over the summer, and then that was only met with the surge of returning players that came back with the expansion. And so that's one of the things that we've been kind of speculating, like, what is that even going to look like when these two massive amount of tidal waves kind of crash up against each other? And so we've seen players who aren't even in Endwalker deciding to take breaks, to unsubscribe for the time being. And honestly, at some point, that is a decent move, because if you can't play the game, even if you're getting 21 free days, you might be asking yourself, Brian, when should I return, or when should I start? And that's kind of the core aspect of the video. So hopefully that was not too long of a TLDR, but now we get to the aspect of where the game is stable, it is playable, and you can get through the queues for the most part. So is now a good time to start? And I would say absolutely. Like, if you were sitting here and you've already purchased the game, we know the game is still not being sold to kind of help alleviate some of that pressure. If you've already purchased the game and you've been in this group of trying to actually start and actually play, I would say with pretty fairly certainty, you should be able to start getting through those queues and actually enjoying your experience, whether you play in a, especially if you're in a second shift, if you're in a shift in which that you can play during the day. That is, it's an absolute yes, you're going to be good to go. Depending on your server and data center, that's going to be something you're going to have to test for yourself to see if this is the absolute right time. I know for myself on Aether And on Sargatanas, right now I see queues pretty much capping out for me at around 2,500, which, based off of the fact that we've seen more and more people, in fact, even asking the community to, this week, have you finished the story? And over 7,000 of you have voted, 53% say yes. So that's a huge chunk of this community that has finished the story. And obviously this, we don't represent the entirety of Final Fantasy XIV here within the YouTube space. So seeing a lot of people play, you're seeing actually faster and faster queue times because somebody is going to just log in, they're going to do what they want, and then they're going to log out. So you're not going to see like players like myself who will end up doing, 4 to 6 to 8 hour marathons as I work my way through the story. As a player who hasn't finished the story, like I'm still kind of in that category of when I do log in, I am going to be on for a longer period of time than normally I would, which I would say is usually a 2 to 3 hour kind of play session, a couple times a week. So, all right. Depending on your server, I'd say within the Aether, within like Sargatanas, but I also hear like over on Fairy, I was talking to some of you guys in the comments, that you're having like a 200 to 300 queue in the evenings. And so you do have the ability to log into different worlds within your data center. So you might actually have a little bit of flexibility in terms of just being able to log in quickly and play. I still feel like a 2000 queue right now is roughly 30 minutes to an hour wait time. And then if you think about it, you still then have 30 minutes when it logs you in. So roughly you could actually budget, enough things to do when you get off work for the evening, especially if you're not on a holiday right now. But if you get off work, you get yourself logged in, and within an hour and a half, you should be able to be playing the game, which gives you enough time to do dinner, family stuff, like any kind of additional, housework that you need to do, go to the gym or something like that. So like there's a lot of opportunities as a player to start now. And because we've seen those two kind of like waves hit, the thing I was looking to see is how are the raids being impacted. The raid scene has been starved for content for well over a year. In fact, one of the really exciting things about the surge was seeing so many people like challenge the old content in unique ways, which was really thrilling to see kind of content creators in the community come together and try to make the best out of a situation of, like a massive gap in content, what people call, just a content drought for Final Fantasy XIV, being able to take advantage of all the content that we've had and pretty much goes like, outside of the kind of the mainstream, and seeing that content brought into the mainstream is really exciting. But seeing that new raid content and even the Savage raid content, which drops on January 4th, it didn't really impact the server times as much. And the reason is that like, despite that being, for a lot of players, the pristine, the pinnacle reason to play any MMORPG, especially for Final Fantasy XIV, you got to remember the majority of the community actually plays for story, and thus not a lot of people kind of jump into that. Now that's something I was interested to see, because I was like, with this new surge, does that bring about like a whole new culture within the game? Our raids are going to impact the login queues in an exceptional way. And overall, it feels like they're pretty much doing exactly what they've done in the past. Yes, there's going to be people who are going to be playing and grinding that content, but it isn't essentially like what you would put as story. So we're not a raid first MMORPG. We're still a story first MMORPG that has that content for those of you who want it. And I honestly can't wait to see the Savage content drop, because I know that the Savage Raiders, they've been impacted the most by the fact that we didn't get a new ultimate, and the fact that we haven't seen, the game delayed, meaning they hadn't had a raid in well over, like a Savage tier raid in well over a year. So I hope you guys enjoy the 4th. I think it's going to be exciting. I can't wait to jump into the raid scene personally myself. So at its core, if you guys are still obviously experiencing longer than queue times, you can always wait. Like, there's nothing wrong with waiting. The story will be there for you. The only downside to that, as somebody who has not finished the story, it becomes increasingly difficult to try and avoid spoilers. And this isn't something that I think at this point, it's more on me than it is on the community, because the game has been out for almost a month now, and we'll see that continue to kind of get loosened and lax, despite like the community's pure focus and on trying not to spoil the game. At some point, like, live streams and raids and things like that, that's going to be visible, right? I still haven't seen the 5th and 6th zone in the game itself, so note that at some point, like, I could accidentally spoil that for myself if I don't put in the time. So like, I'm right there with a lot of you guys who are trying to jump in. Now, for those of you who are like, hey, free trial, it's currently turned off. Hey, I'd like to buy the game, but I can't. What's the status of that? Note that we don't have updates yet from Yoshi P. I do expect something from him. He usually puts out a letter on the 1st of the year. That's kind of the next big update that I'm expecting from Yoshi P, to talk about that. And we also know that in January, he's going to talk about the future of servers. I've stated this multiple times, 3 to 4 months in terms of server architecture, in terms of real relief, kind of getting back to that normalcy of the game itself. And then my voice is cracking. Getting back to that 3 to 4 month normalcy, that's accounting for the 6.1, where we should see the Oceanic Data Center come online, which will be a huge relief for a lot of players to kind of be able to migrate to their local region if they choose to do so, but also having that as an option, as well as more servers to come for both North America and Europe. Yoshi P's talked about this multiple times. We will get kind of a roadmap for that in the end of January, and I expect that roadmap to also kind of entail what their idea is for the future. And I can't wait to finish Endwalker so that I can provide my own speculation to that conversation. But at its core, guys, I think what we're seeing is a huge improvement overall with the server stability. That's to be expected as more people have cleared the story. That's going to allow for more people to kind of even out their play schedule. And so then I think it's a really good time to go, if you already have a copy that you can feel like confident in trying to start, but you might have to kind of target your server or your data center, you know, to give you guys the best options for when playing. Because if you are working on ARR or Heavensward, obviously you're not in Endwalker style content yet, that you still will have to wait in some kind of line. And so for me right now, the line tends to be in the evenings around about an hour and a half. And then I've heard that it's actually better on certain servers. So like maybe check out Fairy if you're on the Aether server. Anybody on the data center can play together, and we will see in the future data center visit. So don't feel like you're going to be locked into your decision or forced into a server that you won't be able to play with people that maybe you want to play with, whether they're friends or another content creator or something like that. So hopefully this has been informative. Hopefully this gives you some insight as to the state of the servers. And as always, you can always let me know your thoughts, your opinions. What's your queue time? One of the things that I think over on Reddit and over within our Discord, that ends up being a huge help in terms of like, hey, you know, I'm not seeing any queue times over here while somebody's still like experiencing 5,000 to 6,000 queue times on a different server, different data center. That's all going to be taken care of. And at some point, this will be just obviously a memory of the past. And ideally, we won't experience it again. One of the things that I've always credited Square Enix with is that they don't make the same mistakes twice in that regards. This was obviously, you know, kind of a mistake outside of their wheelhouse of control due to the nature of the world. But I would venture to bet, based off of Yoshi P's comments of not sparing any expense with, you know, Final Fantasy XIV, that essentially we'll probably see them kind of have more backup, you know, servers ready to go in the wings in case obviously more searches will happen, and they will. What you'll typically see in this point, for those of you who are new, is that as the players that really kind of primary story focus, they go up and then they dip down and they'll come back with the next expansion and kind of get caught up on the story. And that tends to be kind of the biggest play times for the game, where the 0.1 through 0.5 patches tend to be more of just, I guess, the crazy me players, right? Like the players that are always in the game itself. So this video has been way longer than I intended. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you're having a fantastic holiday. And if there's anything you guys need, just let me know. I'm here to help. Thanks so much for watching, for listening, for being here. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great one. I'll see you in my next video. But until then, take care.
I just want to say I'm really glad you're feeling better, and I love the videos. Well, I love you too. Michelle? Shoot for the moon, and so even if you fail, you'll reach the stars. Go for the 100K subscribers. Yeah.